Not everyone on cable news is getting the US withdrawal from Afghanistan wrong. Some are being honest about it. Some, and those who you least expect, like Mr. James Carville, longtime Democratic strategist, who went off on President Joe Biden's critics following the suicide bombing near the Kabul airport that killed 170 Afghans and 15 US servicemen. Take a look at this.
Do midterm voters in 2022 carry foreign policy along with them when they go to vote?
Well, first of all, there's no elegant way to lose a war. We lost this war 15 years ago. All Joe Biden was doing is telling us what time it is. And the hysterical and stupid coverage of the mainstream press, it's been awful. Just read New York Magazine, Josh Marshall on Talking Points. What's hurting Biden's approval now more than anything is this virus has just come back when people thought that it was not. But it's kind of hard to know. And Admiral Mullen, who's one of the most courageous people in uniform, who said, look, I was just wrong about this in 2011. Only one of the few people in this whole establishment that recognized the fact that this was a lost war, and Biden didn't do anything but tell us the truth.
So there you have it. Actually some introspection, especially coming from the Democratic side, about how this war had been lost 15 years ago, is what Carville said. He's risking throwing his own party under the bus, the Democrats, Obama under the bus, and he's doing it. He's being honest, and he's saying what generals have said for many, many, many years now, which is that there is no elegant way to lose this war. We are losing this war, and sad and awful that this attack happened, but this is kind of how it goes, right? And the last thing we need to do is lose more lives in a bad and foregone war.
Yeah, I love the comment there where he said, Joe Biden's just telling us what time it is. That's true, and it's a good way of framing it. Look, I often disagree with Carville because he's very establishment in his politics and not a big fan of progressives and primaries, that's for sure. But the good part of Carville is he does his own version of truth telling. It's his truth, right? And sometimes it is true and sometimes it isn't, but at least he's not afraid to say it. And so in this case, he's right. He agrees with 3/4 of the country. And how long were we going to go? Would the 21st year have made any difference? And I love that he was a rare guest on cable news that called out how terrible mainstream media was. And it's deeply ironic coming from an establishment figure like Carville. But we're doing a story on it because it almost never happens. The last time it happened was what he referenced, Admiral Mullen, and we did a story on that. So that's how rare an anti-war voice is on cable news. It's wall-to-wall, pro-war forever and ever and ever. And again, they've ironically united the left wing and the right wing, and some neoliberals like James Carville, who are saying, enough, man, how much are you guys going to drive this agenda? It's so obvious that you don't care about any of the rest of us and what we think.
I think this is more of a blind squirrel finding a nut. Carville is a total team player. He works for Democrats, he works for super PACs. As Cenk just referenced, he loses his mind during primaries if anyone tries to run on a progressive platform. I mean, remember, this is somebody who thought Michael Bennet would be a good candidate for the Democratic nomination. So this is where he's at. But he's not reaching this from a point of moral conviction. It's just he has to defend Biden because that's what he does professionally. That's it. He's not reaching it like Fran or Cenk or I am. We find this to be bad. But polling reflects that the majority of Americans do not want us to be there and support the withdrawal. Even with this catastrophic fallout, people still support it. There was a widely panned morning consult poll that framed the question of leaving around, would you still support the withdrawal even if you knew it meant Al-Qaeda would gain a foothold and you could see another terrorist attack, and still a majority of respondents supported the withdrawal. I would be surprised if James Carville supported de-escalating tensions with countries in the East, avoiding a new Cold War and encouraging diplomacy with countries like China and Russia, which I don't suspect he'll do, because that seems to be the next step for the military-industrial complex. If James Carville did that, I would be surprised.
I totally agree that it's so a little refreshing. It's always annoying when you've got knee-jerk defense of the president because it's team blue, blah. But like at least Carville's consistent, unlike so many others in the media right now, and so many other like former generals or former CIA, Leon Panetta, or Republicans who up until Biden was in office were all for pulling out of Afghanistan because it was Trump's plan. It's like, no, Carville's just, he's got the line and he's sticking with the line. And he happens to be right. And Jordan's right that it's like has nothing to do with his care or concern for the Afghan people whatsoever. It's just, we lost. Yeah, and Biden's telling us kind of, I can't say like it is because that's a Trumpism, but he's being honest. Thank you for being honest.
Yeah, a couple of last things here. First, I mean, look at this. As I've said throughout the week, we're defending Biden on this decision. And we were dead set against Biden in the primaries. And we're also dead set against him on all the things that he's wrong about. $15 minimum wage, which he doesn't actually want, caving into Republicans on domestic issues, we can go on and on. But for God's sake, it's not that hard to be honest. It's not that hard to be fair and objective and actually care about the facts. And that's why us being the exception proves the rule. It's like, it's so stark. They clearly have an agenda on television, and the agenda is war. It's so obvious. All right, so, and part of that is they say, oh, the polling numbers have now turned on Biden. Yeah, it might have to do with the fact that everyone in the media has turned on Biden because he's withdrawing from a war. So you've got a chicken and egg situation where you're like, oh, golly gee, I wonder why his poll numbers are plummeting after we're all attacking him mercilessly for doing the right thing for once. And then finally, who's attacked us more at home? The Taliban in the last decade or right-wing domestic terrorists? Now, do you ever hear on cable news about what are we gonna do about the scourge of right-wing terrorism in this country? I mean, we had the truck bomber the other day. We've had the guys who were trying to bomb the apartment building in Kansas. We had January 6th. We have one attack after cops murdered throughout the country by right-wingers. So the Taliban's never done that kind of damage to America. Remember, the idea of going into Afghanistan was not because people from Afghanistan and the Taliban did 9/11. The people who did 9/11 were the Saudis. 15 out of the 19 hijackers were Saudis, right? It's that they said, oh, they sheltered Al-Qaeda. Now remember, the Taliban then offered up Al-Qaeda and we refused. The Taliban then offered us surrender, and that's not a progressive site saying it. That's the New York Times in a recent story. They offered to surrender and we refused. So the Taliban, how many times have they attacked us versus the right-wing terrorists in this country? But you never hear that framing on cable news because, oh my God, we might lose advertisers because they want to sell products to the right wing. We might lose ratings. And if we don't do more war, Boeing might pull its advertising from Meet the Press, etc. So understand, the right wing sometimes, their media just makes up lies. The mainstream media is more sophisticated. It's all in the framing. What do they show you and what do they not show you? And that's where the trick is. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.